Yeah, our company is Summit Hotel Properties. We're a publicly traded lodging REIT. We own 97 hotels across 43 different markets in 25 states. We're primarily a franchisee for Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt. We do have a few IHG properties. We do have a couple of independent properties. Most of our hotels fall in kind of the upscale class of the hotel segment. What that really means is we're a rooms-focused hotel business. The majority of our revenue comes through the rooms department. We believe that it does two things. One, it allows us to run higher margins at our hotels. And two, over time, we believe it produces better risk-adjusted returns as we invest in those type of assets through cycles. Yeah, Summit was founded in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and initially was really all kind of an all-in-one shop. It was a developer of hotels, an owner of hotels, and a manager of hotels. And as the company evolved and grew, it got to about 60 hotels in size. The company went public really as a liquidity mechanism for some of those early investors. As part of that transition, we did a couple things. One, we became a REIT, which we believe is a very tax-efficient structure to own hotels in. And two, we exited the self-managed business and became partners with some of what we believe are some of the best, third-party managers in the space. And so we've invested through, that vehicle ever since the IPO in 2011. Well, look, in many ways, I think we're kind of in the golden era of travel. I think when you look at what consumer preferences are and how they're evolving, you see, particularly amongst younger generations, millennial and Gen Z consumers, you just see a higher propensity to consume experience. And the trade-off of consuming more experience, spending more money on experiential type of activities and less money on kind of goods and things, if you will. We believe the demand picture is actually really strong for our business as we look out over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And I think when you couple that with the environment that we're in today, which is very, very supply restricted, we've had a couple of years where we've had less than 1% supply growth. If you go back kind of forever in our business, supply has grown roughly 2% a year forever. We've been growing supply about half of that since the couple of years coming out of the pandemic. And the forecast is really for that to continue. It's prohibitively expensive to both build and finance hotels today. And so you just see a very, very muted supply pipeline broadly in our industry. And so I think the combination of those two things, a really positive demand outlook and a really muted supply outlook, positions lodging just generally to benefit from some of these kind of secular trends that are facilitating more travel broadly across the U.S. Well, yeah, I think that, for one thing, I think we kind of lived through, what was undoubtedly the most catastrophic event that this industry's ever seen with the COVID pandemic. We've never been through a period where, our occupancies didn't go to zero, but they went to as close to zero as you possibly can get. This is a very resilient industry, albeit one that's highly volatile and fairly cyclical. I think what you've seen coming out of the pandemic has been, one, our industry's ability to absorb higher wages. And we've seen, a strict reset or a significant reset in hourly wages across the business. And so while in many ways the industry is back to kind of peak levels of revenue production, we're not all the way back to peak levels of profitability. And a lot of that has been, one, the absorption of higher wages, and two, the absorption of kind of some of the other significant costs that it takes to run the business, insurance being one that has been notable. I think the silver lining there has been, as an industry, we've become much more efficient at managing our labor. And we're running and operating our hotels at kind of near peak occupancies levels with less staff than we've had historically because of some of the efficiencies we gained coming out of the pandemic. I think from the company's perspective, look, not surprisingly, I'm super bullish on where Summit is and the outlook for Summit going forward. I think what we're striving to get to is a better cost of capital and an ability to kind of return to having a real core external growth thesis in our story. Yeah, look, we do believe we have a bit of a unique story. Like we're a true operating company. As I said, our past has been one of where we were a developer, a manager, and an owner of hotels. In many ways, we were kind of a pioneer in the public markets by being one of the first, true kind of select service focused REITs. The people that run our hotels, the people that run our operating team are 20, 30-year veterans of this industry. And so we do think we bring a very an operator type mindset to the business. We've also been highly transaction oriented over the course of the history of our company. As I mentioned, we went public with a little over 60 assets. We have nearly 100 assets today, and only 3 of those are from the IPO portfolio. And so we've demonstrated an ability over the course of the last 12 or 13, 14 years to both buy and sell hotels accretively. We're getting to the point where we believe we're about to see a significant uptick in the number of transactions in our industry. And I think we're very well positioned to take advantage of that. The last thing I would say is this recovery from the pandemic has been very uneven. It's very different by market, and to some extent, it's very different by even type of property. We have more exposure to urban markets, and those markets have been slower to recover over the first few years coming out of the pandemic, but likely have better growth profiles going forward as some of that recovery takes hold. A lot of that's driven by one, better group demand, and kind of this, as I describe it, slow grind higher of business transient travel. And the last thing I would say is about 2/3 of our portfolio is in the Sun Belt, and I think we've seen kind of better growth prospects in some of those markets relative to other markets in the country. So we feel like we're in a really good position today. We're very excited about the outlook for Summit going forward.